There needs to be a lot of thought put into how portable we are, Fairbanks, because if you have to take days to take apart a wash plant and move it from one site to another, it will really slow down the process. Parker Schnabel's hopes of a $25 million gold season went up in smoke when Big Red, his huge wash plant, destroyed itself fiercely. Talk of a beautiful $16 million haul started to come out of that technical nightmare though. But how did he even smell that kind of gold again? What crazy risk did he take? Let's start the engines and find out if Parker can do the impossible, or if Big Red's death rattle was the last straw for his season. The Red Giant falls apart. Parker Schnabel was in a tough spot as the days got shorter and rumors of the deadly Yukon freeze spread. He was a kid who was very good at mining. He regularly got more gold out of the Klondike than miners twice his age. He was put to the test like never before this season at his huge Dominion Creek claim. His goal was a huge amount of gold worth $25 million. Some fans online were already saying it was too much for Parker and that he was setting himself up to fail. Others, the true followers, were sure that he was the only one who could hit that kind of number. But the harsh truth was that he was falling behind. Even though he was working very hard, he felt a huge amount of pressure, like a big weight on his young shoulders. It's not fun for me to rent or borrow wash plants. The ones I've seen get leased to other people have never worked out well. They take a lot of damage and need a lot of upkeep. His crew was currently slogging through a 15-foot bed of gravel that looked like it was red. They got paid pretty well, about half an ounce of gold for every 100 yards of dirt they worked with. It's not terrible, but Parker needed a bigger win to catch up. The real prize, the stuff of Klondike stories, was further down. They thought that the White Channel pay dirt could hold 4 times as much gold or even more. That White Channel was the best thing they had going for them. The most important thing to save the season and reach that crazy $25 million goal. Parker's huge wash plant, which they playfully called Big Red, was the workhorse of the whole operation. It ate up tons of pay dirt and sifted out the valuable gold. 5 months straight, Big Red had been shaking and rattling, handling earth all day every day. It was the center of his Dominion Creek mine site, but the hard work that never stopped had worn him down. Are you ready for water? Yes. Let's do it. You're going to get wet. Then the unthinkable took place. There was no notice before the disaster. Big Red, the most important part of his multi-million-dollar dream, started to shake very badly. Not its normal rhythmic processing shudder, but a destructive vibration that got out of hand. Then it shook itself apart with a series of sickening crunches and groans of metal being tortured. Important parts came loose, the frame cracked, and the loud wash plant stopped working. A broken-down giant in the middle of the gold it was meant to take. Parker and his crew could only stare in shock and amazement. You couldn't just quickly put this back together to fix the problem. This was a disaster. It would take a long time to rebuild Big Red from scratch. Parker felt like he had been hit hard by the consequences. His main machine for getting gold wasn't working. The worst part was that they couldn't get to or handle the very large amount of White Channel pay they were counting on. The treasure that was meant to save their season. Yes, we now have water. Let's hope this works this time. Let's go, kid. How does she hit? It did nothing but sit there. A lot of it was full of gold, but it was no longer possible to get. Winter was coming quickly. Gold worth tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars was lost every day of downtime. It looked like the season was over. There were possibly some fans who thought this was it. Parker's aggressive growth and hard driving finally caught up with him at that time. Some viewers always say the same thing online. Parker pushes his crew and tools way too hard, always trying to get those big numbers that make the news, and breakdowns like this are bound to happen. Some people defend him, saying that gold mining in the Yukon is hard work and that broken equipment is normal. They admire his unwavering determination to succeed despite the chances. Every time something breaks, the argument gets worse. There was bad luck, bad weather, or a boss who was too close to the edge. Big Red used to roar, but now there was nothing but quiet. Parker's goal of $25 million and the stronger need to store thousands more ounces before the freeze seemed like an icy Yukon pipe dream. His plan had to come together today. Parker had to pull a rabbit out of his hat because Big Red was broken and the season was running out. If he didn't, his Dominion Creek dream and millions of dollars would be lost in the snow, bringing an antique back to life. At Dominion Creek, the air was heavy with sadness. Parker Schnabel's top gold getter Big Red was a smashed mess. The group was shocked. They were so close to that gold-filled rich White Channel pay dirt that they could almost taste it, but now many mine bosses couldn't touch it. They would have to give up, cut their losses, and hope for better luck next year after a disaster of this size this late in the season. Parker Schnabel isn't like most mine bosses, though. Some fans call it stubbornness, which means not wanting to give up, which can get close to mania. Some people see it as a sign of a real champion, an unwavering drive to win no matter what, even when the odds are against them. That is not a good thing. That much water coming out means that the ground is wearing away. This wash plant pad is the last thing we want. Parker had a lot on his mind. He couldn't do nothing but watch his season end. He had to get another wash plant right away. He then thought of Wash Plant Bob. Bob was an old piece of mine history. It was a wash plant that was built in the 1960s, with a strong V12 engine and a tough six-wheel drive system made to handle the rough Yukon terrain. It was a beast in its own right, but Bob had been forgotten for 3 weeks in the corner of one of Parker's other lands, doing nothing. It was old, it didn't work right, and it would be a huge job to move it and get it going again. Many people on social media were probably already having second thoughts. Some fans were probably thinking, an old machine, is he serious? That thing will break before it washes a yard of dirt. Others, maybe older viewers who like old iron, were probably rooting for the old machine to come back. Parker made the phone call. Wash plant. Bob had to be moved from where it was lying down and dragged over dangerous mountain roads to Dominion Creek. By the end of that same day, it was up and running and looking for gold. It was a crazy request. It was very hard to move a machine that old and big with parts that were fragile and could break. The roads were rough, narrow and steep. Wash plant Bob could end up in a heap at the bottom of a gully if they took a wrong turn or slipped. This would be Parker's last chance. The crew jumped into action, even though they were surely tired and sad about Big Red's death. A lot of Parker fans like to point out this as an example of his loyalty. Even if the plans don't seem possible, his team will do anything for him. They had to be very careful as they drove this huge six-wheel drive beast. This 60-year-old giant went through some of the Yukon's roughest landscapes. There were heart-stopping moments at every bump, high rise, and tight turn. Most likely Wash Plant Bob's V12 engine roared and coughed. As it pushed its way toward Dominion, it made a sound that had not been heard in weeks. We're only going to turn on the plant to see if it works. Good, we got water. It's good that the screen shakes. There's something romantic about seeing these old tools work. A lot of people who watch Gold Rush love seeing people come up with desperate and creative solutions that use what you have, don't give up spirit. Now for most small-time miners, a $4 million cleanup would be reason to pop the cork. That's what it would be. The kind of outcome that turns a bad season into a good one. Also, 96 ounces of gold is not a small amount. After everything that had gone wrong and the pain of losing Big Red, that gold was a bright spot of hope. There was still gold in the ground, so all of their hard work wasn't for nothing. It gave the team a much-needed morale boost. Fans who watched from home thought it was a story about forgiveness. People would say that Parker always finds a way. The kid always tries. But Parker Schnabel isn't the smallest thing. He's not looking for small wins. For the season, a $25 million goal was set, and the ghost of Big Reds was still very present. This haul was just the start. 96-0. That was the starter. Of course, it showed that their backup plan wasn't a total bust. Thanks for finishing this. It's set up well. I like the plan. I know there will be some bugs to fix, but I like it so far. Bob could really find gold with that wash plan. Parker wasn't after the gold rush though. Not even close. There was still more gold in the White Channel pay. This was the real prize that could really change the course of this season. That's the dirt that for years made people talk about how richer, older, and untouched it was. Their study showed that it had 4 times as many nutrients as the red gravel they were just running on. Everything might be different after that white pay. Now everyone was looking at Wash Plant Bob. There was more to this than just getting a few more ounces out of the dirt. This was about Parker's whole season, his name and his memory. The man has made a name for himself by taking big chances and winning even bigger. But this time it felt like more was at stake. Everything now depended on a machine that was more than 50 years old and had just been brought back to life. It was never meant for Wash Plant Bob to be the hero of a modern gold mine. The steel frame, which was 60 years old and creaking and shaking, was now the center of attention. The $2.5 million cleanup gave them some time to think, but the White Channel was what would make or break them. That was the goal that could help them reach their big goals for the season. Goals that seemed so far away now. Bob had to wash the plant. It had to run fast, clean, and not break when it got tough. Parker could lose everything he's worked so hard to build if it fails now. I think I'll have to pull out the whole tray though. Take it all out. Clean this up. Set it. It only needs a little dirt to hold it. We'll bed that again. The team was really tense as they looked at this new task. Bob's wash plant was barely running. The team had seen it spit out gold before, but that was from the red gravel. The real test now began. Could it go on? Could it handle the thick, heavy stuff in the white path without getting stuck or breaking? Could it move and pay quickly enough to beat the clock before the Yukon freeze ended the season? Fans knew that these questions were important. There were already a lot of comments online. Some people had faith in Parker and his machine for beating the odds. Some people were ready to say it was just another risky move that would fail. That's what makes Parker's story so interesting though. He lives in the area between great success and terrible failure, between making a lot of money and seeing it all go away. The next few weeks are very important because time is running out and bad weather is coming. Each bucket of dirt was important. Every hour that Bob's wash plant worked without stopping was a win. Parker did not want a good break. His plan was to use grit, strategy, and simple willpower. And just maybe,
This old machine that has been forgotten could make one of the most surprising comebacks in Gold Rush history. Most likely fan forums lit up at this time. Skeptics would point to Bob's age and say that he would always break down when he heard the harder White Channel content. Parker's creativity and the hard work of his crew would be praised by fans. Gold Rush lives on this tension and shows how problems are solved minute by minute. Maybe the clay in the White Channel was making the screens blind, which meant they had to be cleaned out often and took a lot of time. Or, because of its density, they may have had to add more violent spray bars or even change the internal lifters of the drums to make sure they worked properly and washed the material. Making changes on the spot, which usually involves bush welding and creative engineering, is a big part of the show. It shows how resourceful people had to be to live in the Klondike. To even come close to 16 million, Wash Plant Bob couldn't just do it. It had to turn into a monster that spits gold and runs almost non-stop, 310.45. Yes, Big Red is ending strong. What do you think of this new wash plant? Rock and sand. It's likely that Parker was putting his crew through hard shifts day and night in the cold Yukon sky. The miners would keep giving Bob that valuable white pay dirt over and over again. The logistics of such large-scale activities are something that isn't known. Making sure there is enough fuel for all the machines in a remote area, managing the wash plant's water supplies, which is an important but often difficult task, and taking care of the ever-growing piles of tailings while racing against the clock. The Gold Rush cams would have carefully recorded the gold weigh-ins from the White Channel. These would have been the exciting heart of the operation. With each weigh-in that was greater than the last, the doubt would fade, giving them more drive. Picture the scenes. In the bright lights of the gold room, Parker poured out bag after bag of gold. The scales numbers are going up, 50 ounces, 100 ounces, and then even bigger single cleanups, as their optimized relic got them to the middle of the pay run. It was not simple. The old plant was bound to break down at some point. The stress would go through the roof every time one of the wash plant bobs broke, or a belt came undone. The crew worked hard to fix it because they knew that every hour they lost was gold they could never get back. In the world of gold mining, getting to a $16 million haul with a backup wash plant, especially one from Bob's time, is nothing short of amazing. It's about a lot of things. There was a lot of rich White Channel pay dirt at Dominion Creek. Parker had an amazing knack for finding and working this kind of ground, and his crew was completely determined. It also seems to show that they were able to keep Wash Plant Bob going at an amazingly high level for a long time. This shows how good they are at mechanics and how much Parker wants them to improve everything. It wasn't just about getting rid of Big Red. It was about forcing an old dog to do things it wasn't meant to do. Not only did Parker save his season from disaster, he also made it better. He wrote one of the most interesting comeback stories in the history of the Gold Rush. It shows that with enough determination and a dash of inspired crazy, even long-lost artifacts can bring in a king's ransom. Would-be hero Bob from the wash plant save Parker's season and bring those millions? Or was this just a band-aid for a wound that would not heal this season? Please like, subscribe, and let us know if you think Parker's old-school bet was smart or just plain stupid.